What's up? What's up? Here we are. We're back with another episode. This is, we've been doing this for a long time now. 2023. I think we started in maybe like 2018 or something like that, but we're still going, still live and at it. My name is Chase Minnifield. I am your host of the podcast, the Hooswhere podcast, and we have Max on the line. What's good, Max?
What's up, guys? Back again. I know it's been a while coming to you live from Charlottesville. Got an exciting guest today. We're glad to be back. This will probably come out first of the year. So happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a great holiday.
Hey, this guy just decided not to show up for it. You're not going to address you not showing up for the last podcast.
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Chase, you didn't even ask me input what time we can do it or anything. You just scheduled the podcast and the time came. You asked, you want to get on? It's like, bro, I'm in a meeting.
It's getting ridiculous. I think that's the one thing, before I introduce our guest, that's one thing that I'm getting tired of in this age of Zoom and all this. Everybody's at a meeting. They're never not, listen, they're never not in a meeting these days since everything is online. Like,
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? I just need a quick work. Like, hey, are you free this time? Yes or no? That's all I need.
You'd be like, are you coming to Christmas dinner? You'd be like, I'm in a meeting. Okay.
Oh, man.
Let's go ahead, man. Let's get to it. We got a special guest today. We have a former UVA tennis All-American, whatever you want to call it. All-American, super great, respectable, one of the best to ever do it with the Sabres. So, Emily Fraser, what's up?
Thank you. I appreciate that really nice intro.
Thanks for jumping on here. We appreciate you jumping on here. I know that I think you may be our first women's tennis player. We had Jameer on here.
That's great. Yeah.
A while
I'm
back.
happy to represent UVA women's tennis then as the first one.
There you go. Give us a quick background. Actually, no, before we start on the background, like tell us what you're doing now, and then we're going to run our way back.
Okay. So I live in Pittsburgh and I am in real estate. So I do residential real estate sales. I've been in real estate for the last 4 years, like full time. And I have my own real estate team in the city of Pittsburgh. I largely serve Allegheny County, largely just doing like residential sales, and have worked with a couple hundred clients at this point. So it's been a really busy last few years.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We always like to start off with like what everybody is doing before we kind of run it back. But that's very interesting. We'll definitely dive more into that as we get going. But as Max kind of mentioned before we started recording, like where are you from and how did you end up at UVA?
So I'm from New York, from a suburb of New York City called Rye. I ended up at UVA because I was recruited there for sports, obviously. Looked at a couple different schools and was recruited by some universities like in the Northeast. And then it basically came down to, for me, like Vanderbilt or UVA. Those were my top two choices. Went on recruiting visits to both places and just felt like I totally hit it off with the team and the coaches at UVA. Loved the campus, loved my experience there, and felt like it was the right fit. So, you know, at that time in my life, I was just very much, and still to this day, like I go off of just my gut and the way I feel when I'm in certain situations, and it felt like the right place. And that's why I ended up committing there.
And they're both, obviously, Vandy's super academic, Virginia's super academic. Was that a reason of this at all? Or was Vandy have a good like tennis team? I know UVA's tennis team was respectable.
Yeah. So coming out of high school, I was very much thinking like pro tennis, wanted to follow that path, but also, you know, have my parents in my ear saying like, you still need to like make sure you go to a really strong academic school and put yourself in a position that you have, you know, an opportunity for a great career post college. I actually was recruited to a couple Ivy League schools, but for me, I felt like it would be too hard to commit everything that I wanted to commit to my tennis career in college and, you know, balance academics at those universities. So I preferred going to a bigger sports school and having kind of that culture as part of my college experience. But yeah, it definitely played a big role. Obviously, Virginia has an incredible reputation, you know, where I'm from, and also on a national scale too. So I was definitely proud to commit there.
So you came in like out of high school, you was like pro tennis, this is what I'm about to do. Like I'm trying to go chase the pros. I know too many people say that, you know, that was my mindset too when I came to Virginia, but most people say that, but then they don't really like, you know what I'm saying? They the first people out doing whatever they got to do, losing their schedule. I'm not going to point any fingers at anybody.
Hey, I didn't say I'm going to the pros though, you know what I'm saying? I was the first one out there, but you know, when I went there, I was like, you know, hey, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, we got a backup plan.
It's always that awkward like team like huddle or team like sit down where like a guest speaker comes in and they're like, how many of you guys want to play professional? And everybody's like, everyone.
And raise your hand.
If you want to really be like a professional tennis player, like what are we looking like as far as like the sacrifice and training that takes to try to chase that goal and that dream?
It's funny, like I look back on my high school training and college training, and I'm like, how did I do that? Like today's version of me, I don't know if I'd be able to like relive those days. It was hard. It was a lot. It was a lot of stuff, weight training, track training, on the court, off the court. It's a lot of hours per day. It's just, in high school, I was thrown into tennis at age 4. My parents were big tennis players. My family is a big tennis family. And it sort of was just all I knew. So in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to play pro tennis. This is my life. This is who I am. This is my identity. And so I was on that path. I had really great coaches through high school that motivated me to want to follow that professional path as well. And I basically worked out a deal with my mom where I was like, hey, like I'll commit to a university, but I want to defer for 1 year post high school. And I want to try to play some pro tournaments, and I want to travel, and I want to do that whole thing. And if I do really well, maybe I won't go to college. Maybe I'll just keep going and I'll keep playing. It was an interesting year, a year of a lot of like personal growth. I traveled to like France and Portugal and England and all these places where these like low level pro tennis tournaments took place. And I was alone, and I traveled like with friends. I mean, I had friends that played these tournaments as well, but I was so like out of my element and so just not mature enough for that experience at that time, and did okay. I mean, became ranked and won some matches, didn't do as well as I expected to, or as I wanted to, but really honestly peaked by the end of the year. So I felt really prepared going into UVA, and I was playing really good tennis at that time in my life. But I think the experience overall just kind of taught me, that I wasn't so sure that I wanted to pursue a professional career post college. I was like, okay, once I go to college, we'll see how it goes. I want to have the best collegiate tennis career I can have. But it was the first moment where I was like, okay, that maybe there's other options in this world of careers that I could have. So yeah, that was kind of the path I took.
Did the pro tour help your recruiting, or were you already committed to UVA before you went on that year? I
was already committed. So I it was kind of an interesting recruiting process because I was being recruited as if I was 1 year behind, essentially.
Gotcha.
So I did have that like in the back, and I had that like safety, to know that nothing was do or die. I was just trying to have this experience and do the best I could. But I did have that, I've always had that option of, okay, I'm going to UVA in the fall of 2008, and I'm going to start my collegiate career.
Are you considered an amateur still? Like, are you able to set money like before you come to school at all?
No. Well, so it's interesting now. The rules have changed a lot. So now you can. I'm not totally familiar with the rules, but I think now you can accept, sponsorships and money, prize money and stuff like that. At the time, I could only accept enough to cover my expenses, and I had to submit receipts and did that whole thing. So, but I mean, when you're playing the lowest level, pro tournaments, the total prize is like $10,000. So the winner, that's split up amongst everyone. So the winner gets like $2,000. If you lose in the quarters, you get a couple $100. So like it's not like you're making a ton of money anyway. You're pretty much just covering your expenses, if that.
I feel like I've learned more after watching King Richard.
I'm about to say, yeah.
Serena and Venus, like they really bypassed all of that because they were that good. They pretty much went like straight to the top, which was really impressive. But yeah, most players, I mean, there's several thousand people that try to do this pro tour, and most of them really, you can't really make a living unless you're in the top 100, top 150 maybe. So it's tough. It's a grind. Yeah.
When I have a daughter, I want her to play tennis or golf.
Yeah.
So
do you think that
what are my odds here of having a professional tennis player?
It's tough. It's tough. I don't know the exact odds, but the other thing I'll say about tennis is that I was always jealous of team sports. Like, not that it wasn't a team experience in college. I think that's why I loved college tennis so much. That was my favorite time period of my entire tennis career, was having these teammates that, we traveled together. We had common goals. We worked together, all that kind of stuff. But it's such an individual sport that it breeds a lot of weirdness in people's personalities, and people get so in their own head, and it's so competitive and so cutthroat because you're always out for yourself, and you're really not, you don't have this team around you to kind of keep you level-headed. So it's interesting. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's a ton of great life lessons and all that kind of stuff. And it's put me in a position now to be successful in other areas of my life. But it's tough. Yeah. It's got its ups and downs for sure.
We'll get more into that because I was talking about, like, when I was talking on our last podcast that Max missed. Jim.
You ain't gonna let that go. You ain't gonna let that go.
We'll never let it go.
It is what it is, right? Like, we can't change history.
Jesus.
But he was a wrestler. Jim was a wrestler. And I was like, man, I wish I had an individual sport. And I wish I wasn't necessarily a team sport. Like, no disrespect, Max, but
yeah,
like, I would rather rely on myself and then go out there and like have that.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I'd rather go out there and like have like winning and losing based on my own individual preparation and performance than for me to be sitting on the bench watching The Office stinking up, and then I got to go back.
Hey, man, we ain't always thinking about that. You gotta have a different mindset though. You're on the island, you playing corner, you do a lot of one-on-one. It's a lot by yourself, but in the office, we'd always work together. So, what I'm saying? We love the team atmosphere out there.
Okay. Like I said, it feels bad. It feels bad when you see somebody on the jumbotron effing up. I'm gonna keep it as effing up. And then you gotta go out there. You gotta go out there and then you gotta keep them. You gotta keep the other team from scoring based off somebody else's mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
Man. Hey, like Coach said, bro, just do your job. Let us worry about ours, all right?
That is a great way of thinking of it, honestly. And football is tough because there's so many. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong and so many people you have to rely on. And I imagine it's hard to build a culture when you have 80 players on a team or something like that. So, but yeah, I that's interesting. The grass isn't always greener.
One thing that it always did help is, like, I think that I got the most, like, for my business career post football is like being able to like lead a team and feel like you can like motivate people, like encourage people, see people get better. Like, I think that has been a big piece of me, like being able to create a team. Especially with Helping Hands, where I have like 70 people that are working for me, and I got some people I've never met, but essentially, like, some people be like, you need to fire this person, you need to fire this person, you need to fire this person. I'm like, I keep on giving them chance after chance because I like to see people get better. I like to see people. It's bitten me sometimes as well, and I'm sure, Max, I'll be interested to hear your opinion with dealing with the moving company. Sometimes you like to you think you can, like, if people are trying and giving effort, but they may be messing up here and there. And you'd be like, hey, we can't keep on having this happen. We can't keep on having this happen. And then it happens again. Like, where do you think that, like, being in a team environment, Max, has made you like be more like cutthroat or be less cutthroat when it comes to like people like on your team or staff and business?
Now, 100% less cutthroat, man. I'm too nice, man. I give people too many chances. And, there's even a lot of guys that work for me like, man, I wouldn't have brought him back, man. I'm the same way because, especially, when we went through it, man, and you always had your teammates to lean on, and people messed up a lot. And, what I'm saying? And they always gave you a chance, to prove yourself. I've been the same way, and it's definitely bit me probably a lot, but I think more times than not, I've also given these a couple of extra chances. They've shown it. So it's gone both ways, but yeah, I'm definitely way too lenient. Everyone tells me that. A lot of people just don't get it. I'm way too lenient though.
What about you, Emily, with your team? Do you feel like you're coming from an individual sport? Yeah. Are you cutthroat or less cutthroat, like with dealing with your team based on your experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, because I'm coming from a perspective too of post being a player in college, I coached at Pitt for the women's tennis team as the assistant, and I volunteered at UVA too post being a player. So like, it's interesting having both perspectives, as feeling like I've been the teammate and I've been the leader and I've been in both roles. So I think that makes me a little bit more patient and wanting to work with people. I think the most important thing about a team is having the right culture. And so, there are certain times where you might be upset or you have a conflict with this person or whatever. And I think I've always worked through that with just communicating extremely openly and honestly, but always bearing in mind, like, people are people and they have emotions, and I have to really control the way I deliver my message. So, my team's not huge. I have 2 other people besides me right now. It probably won't ever grow bigger than 4 or 5. As far as my real estate team in Pittsburgh, I want to explore real estate in other cities too, so that it may grow in that way. But yeah, I think having the perspective of being both like the player and the coach, like, it's given me this insight where, it's all about keeping the culture and keeping the positivity on the team. So like, I hear you where it's tough to you get upset about things, but you don't want to really lay into people and be this jerk, because you want to keep the culture and the vibe of the team up.
If you can explain what you mean by team, because I know a lot of people, I'm a big $1 Million Listing fan, so I know exactly what you're talking about, but kind of how it works. A lot of people think you're a real estate agent, you just work for a brokerage. When you say like your own team, like you just got to explain a little bit more about what that means and then how that works for you guys and if it's broken down.
Yeah. So I do hang my license with a brokerage, which is Pyatt Sotheby's, which is like the Sotheby's franchise in Pittsburgh. And then I have my own team at Pyatt Sotheby's. My first hire was an assistant. Then I hired him in July of last year. So he has, over the last year and a half that we've worked together, just been one of the most impressive people and has filled a lot of roles and worn a lot of shoes and been a jack of all trades for me in growing my business. And I'm really lucky to have connected with him. And so he's sort of become more than just an assistant at this point. Like he's sort of like an associate or a partner to me, in that like we work together with all of our clients, and he can write offers and he can cover for me when I'm not in town. And he can show houses and he can do all that kind of stuff. And his interest is more in like design and staging and that kind of stuff. So he's really taken on a big role as far as listing preparation and that kind of stuff. And then my next hire, who is actually just a very recent hire, I brought on about a month ago now. And she is more of just an independent agent. She's a buyer and seller agent and works, and kind of works as a part of my brand and part of my team. I do send her some business, and she also does bring in her own business. And she just kind of works under the umbrella of the Fraser team at Pyatt Sotheby's.
And let me just clarify, like, for my people that's on the ground, like doing the work, I have way more leniency for them, because essentially, like, they should be better ran by like middle management, that type of situation, and better like educated. So I always look at like, okay, you did this wrong. Now, why did you do this wrong? Is it because of bad like mentorship for the job, or is it just you just insubordinate and don't want to do or asking you to do? Like, those are two different types of levels of correction there. Now, for my like middle management, I'm hard as hell on them. Like,
listen, I know I
run it just like, you are good at it. You're good at what you do. But
I seen Chase Rath. Hey, one too many emails from one of these properties.
Oh yeah,
he was on me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing about me, I'm a perfectionist. Like, and I think sometimes it comes off bad, but I just don't accept losing. I don't accept losing in no form of fashion. I don't like, even if it's like you're supposed to get 100 on the test, you get a 99. Like, we're going to talk about that 1%. We're going to talk about that 1%. Like, that's just how I am in general. So it's not to mean that, and I have to tell my team and I have to reiterate, like, it doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. Like, let me reiterate, you guys are doing great, and we can be better, and we can always be better. So don't get mad at me for like trying to like chase perfection. You know what I'm saying? And I gotta be accountable for that as well. Because at the end of the day, once you start letting things lapse, it starts to turn into a snowball, and it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And then you're wondering why the boat's sinking. The boat's sinking because of that 2 months ago, 3 months ago, a year ago, you let some stuff go. And that ain't gonna be me. Tell you that. So Emily, what did you study when you got off of so you went to go play and travel the world a little bit, which is super awesome, dope. I'm sure a lot of us didn't get that opportunity before college, but you come back, and how was the team then? Was you excited to come back? Like, how do they even prepare for that? Did that, like, you're in one class and you decide you're not coming, and then you go to another class? Is that the case? Like, or are you still in that original class?
I was very clear with the coaches at the beginning, that I wanted to start in 2008, fall of 2008. And I had graduated in, May of 2007. So so they knew they were recruiting me for the following year. But yeah, so I started at UVA, that August, September. What really attracted me about the program was, at the time, I really believed in the coaches. They were kind of relatively new to the program at that time, like only a couple of years. And they had really changed, like UVA women's tennis prior to them was an unranked, program. And they had become top 30, I think, 35 in the nation. They were like making the NCAA tournament and winning a round or two and like that kind of thing. So I really bought into their sort of model that they were putting forth to me of like, okay, you're part of the new wave of talent that we're bringing in to really change the culture of this team and try to reach higher levels of success, be a top 10, a top 5 team. And be making the round of 16 and the quarterfinals and the, onwards of the NCAA tournament, and have individuals and doubles teams playing in the individual NCAAs as well. So I was really excited by that idea of the transition of the team. And it really was that. I mean, my teammates and I, we really did change the program a lot between my first year and my fourth year. And then it got even better post my graduation too. And, there were some extremely talented players that came even after me. And I think that we really tried to do what we could to, build a foundation of, something that could become really successful. And I think that's probably what I'm most proud of my time at UVA.
So what did you study?
Sports medicine. I was in kinesiology. So I was it's interesting. For as much as I knew that I wasn't going to play pro tennis after college, I was still extremely focused on my tennis career in college. I just had a lot of pride around tennis. And like I said earlier, my whole identity was in tennis, and I really didn't know any different. So I just had a lot of self-worth and everything wrapped up in the sport. So it was really, that was what I focused on. I wasn't super career oriented at that time in my life. Yeah. And that's one thing I regret, is not taking more advantage of the academic and internship and career and networking opportunities that UVA afforded me, which who knows, my tennis career might not have been as strong if I did that, but it's just one of those things that I probably would have tried to do the business school and focus more in business classes if I could go back and do it again. But at the time I thought maybe I wanted to get into medicine, sports medicine and go that direction. So I did go into kinesiology while I was there.
Did you decide after that year that you pro is not going to be my option? Is that what you, or was you still playing with the idea of going pro after, or sometime after?
Yeah, I think I kind of decided I didn't want that lifestyle. It was too much of a grind. And I felt like, at best I knew my talent, and I knew at best I could be a top 300 player in the world, maybe. And that still, to me at that time, okay, if I think of what I realistically think is the best I probably could get to, it still wasn't appealing enough to me at that point. It's really, even at that ranking, it's really hard to make a living and to live solely off that. So I just kind of early on decided I didn't want to do that grind anymore. But again, I wish I had a better answer for you. I really just, I wasn't super career oriented at the time. So I didn't have a clear path. And it kind of was just where I am now as a result of just me trying a bunch of things and then a path unfolding. Yeah. Similar to you, Jason and Max, I've always been very entrepreneurial. So a lot of my post-college attempts at a career were, in starting my own business and doing my own thing. And that's how I landed in real estate, honestly.
This is what this says. I'm just looking at this little bio thing right here. It says Fraser etched her name all over the UVA record books, regarded as one of the top programs in the nation. She left ranking 4th all-time in career singles and 3rd all-time in career doubles. 3rd all-time in combined victories. Listen, if you're at that level, then I don't know how you can focus on school, to be honest with you.
Thank you. You're making me feel better. I appreciate it. I want to know who wrote that little bio for you. I did have a career I was very proud of. And it was a lot. It definitely took a lot out of me just doing that stuff. So,
well, I mean, that's awesome. I don't know if they still stand or not. I think I'm I don't know. I'm on the interceptions list for the UVA. I check it.
You went down. Hey, Harris passed you up quick.
Easy, buddy. Easy.
That was quick.
I think on our own podcast.
I think Juan Thornhill got you too.
Oh,
bro.
shit.
I think Thornhill got you. I think he's down there a little bit, bro. I don't know if he's still on the boards.
Yeah, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's very commendable and awesome as far as leading, like you said, you came to the school to kind of be a part of the change of the program. And this is what it says here. It says UVA is one of the top programs in the country. So you had to be a part of that. So
Thank you.
Going from there, that's awesome. Study kinesiology. How was that as far as dealing with academics and sports? Was it an easy opportunity? Was it still difficult in the UVA criteria? Did you find any struggles with that?
It was fine. I did enough to do fairly well and get by. There were some classes that were really tough science classes, and some that weren't so bad, that were a little bit more athletic training kind of stuff that I found really fun and interesting. But yeah, I would say that I was just someone who never at that time in my life just didn't let myself get overwhelmed by school. So I would do the best I could with the time and the effort that I had and let the chips fall where they may, sort of thing. So yeah, it was not too bad overall. It was a good program.
Oh, they have one class we have that thing is in the what's the old gym area?
Oh, Mem Gym?
Mem Gym, is that where the classes were at over there?
Yeah, we did have some classes in Mem Gym. Yeah. And now it's renamed, but that building that I'm not going to remember it, but the building like right before the bridge that like is just beyond Mem Gym. I can't remember the name of the building now, but a lot of the classes were in like one building that was they were by these like extra tennis courts, the Dell tennis court.
Yeah, was it next to the basketball court, outside basketball courts?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was telling people, most people are like, man, I don't know how we did it with our schedule. And I was like, I don't know how other sports do it. We had all our games on Saturday and we didn't leave until Friday. So we knew every week was going to be the same. So I don't know how you guys did, because y'all had games whenever, God knows whenever.
Yeah.
Did they expect you guys to just do like work on the road? That's pretty much what the situation is?
Pretty much. Like fall was the worst. And honestly, the tough thing about college tennis is it's all year. So we had a fall season and a spring season. Fall was the worst because we would play tournaments and we would go travel on Thursday morning, play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get home Sunday night. And we did like 5 of those during the fall season. And then we had 20 dates of matches in the spring season.
Okay, we get through UVA, finish up, and then go straight into like what's at the end. So let's say you play your last match, you know what I'm saying? What happens after that? Are you already preparing for the next thing? And like, are your senior year, are you like already like looking for a job? And is that your situation, or what are you kind of doing?
No, I was very in the moment. So when it all ended, it was kind of like, now what? I didn't prepare very well for that. So I moved home and then quickly realized like, I need to get a job. I need to do something. I need to like take a step. I need to make some sort of action, and then hopefully the rest will fall into place. So I actually, after about a semester at home, I moved back to UVA and basically became the volunteer assistant coach for the team that spring. So I did that for one semester, for the spring semester, and then was hired as the assistant women's coach at Pitt the following year. So it was like, there was basically 1 year between graduating and being hired at Pitt. And then, half of that year I was trying to figure out what to do. And half of that year I became the volunteer assistant coach.
So how long did you stay at Pitt?
I was there for 2 seasons. And I quickly realized that I liked being a player a lot more than I liked being a coach. I will say like college coaching is really tough because there's not a ton of money in it and you're traveling all the time and it's not easy to build a community like in the city that you're in, or, so it just felt like it was a lot of, odd hours. And as you guys know, and not a ton of pay. So I decided I wanted to go into private coaching. And so I basically spent that time when I was at Pitt getting my CSCS certification, which is just a strength and conditioning certification. And I also got certified in tennis specific off-court training.
For me to train football, I'm not going to go get no football. Like,
yeah,
you kiss where don't shine with that one.
It was not required. It was more just something that I'm always like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it the best I can do it. So I'm going to get the best education, the best certification, like that kind of thing. So I wanted to separate myself by having those accolades like behind me. So I basically started connecting with local players in the Pittsburgh area, and the Pitt team, actually, we didn't have our own facility. So we would train out of a club called Alpha Tennis and Fitness in another area in Pittsburgh. So I started developing a community at this club, Alpha, and meeting girls, like young high school girls who wanted to play college tennis and wanted to, get that high level training where they could have one person who would train them in the gym, on the court, and basically create a full like training program. So my idea was like, okay, I'm going to have 5 to 10 clients who I handle their entire training regimen, basically. And I'm with them every day. And it's this whole like package. So that's basically what I started doing. And I left Pitt and I started doing that. And I was pretty full time. I got busy very quickly because there's not a big tennis scene in Pittsburgh. And it's really easy if you have like good credentials and are a woman to like separate yourself, because there really just aren't many female coaches, period, but especially in Pittsburgh. So I built up a pretty strong following. And then I did that for about 6 to 8 months. And then at that mark, the director of the tennis program at Alpha quit. So they quickly asked me if I wanted to step into that role. which I did. So I stepped into becoming more of just a director of tennis and running the entire program, which meant, high performance juniors, little under 10s, women, men, adult leagues, that whole thing. So there's more variety in that job than what I was doing previously. But yeah, and then I was the director for about 2 years there as well, and decided that it's really hard to scale when you're making money based on your hourly rate, basically. So, I felt like, okay, I'm at a point where I'm only going to make as much money as I can work hours in a day. And of course, there are other ways that you can scale with like clinics and putting more people on the court at the same time and that whole thing. But just the way my role was structured at the club, I didn't really have that opportunity for growth. So someone that I had met through the tennis circles basically suggested to me like, hey, like you should get your real estate license because maybe you won't want to invest in real estate, or maybe it's an idea for you or just something else to have or to do. And so I got my real estate license, and kind of just, it started because I had a couple friends who were ready to buy their first condo or their first home. And they were like, hey, you have your license. Why don't you help me? And I quickly saw how much you could scale and that the ceiling was sort of unlimited, and I could make my own schedule and I didn't have to be exhausted and work 8 to 10 physical hours a day. And I sort of saw the benefits really quickly, and then became extremely intrigued in growing my career in real estate.
Well, I got a couple kudos already out the gate. Like, first of all, kudos on getting your like certification, because you probably didn't have your certification, you couldn't step into that role of like outside of being the personal coach or personal trainer type situation. I know for me specifically, like I tried to do a partnership with the YMCA, and I was like, listen, this is my background from NFL, Like, I don't need to have any type of I know what I'm doing, right? Like I know what I'm doing. Remember they told me you need this certification, you need some type of certification. So I went online and did like an hour certification real quick. Like, and I sent it to them, and they was like, we never heard of this before. I was like, all right, whatever. I'm not going to, this obviously not for me. But then I did start doing like some personal training, like individually with kids. And I did the same thing you did, where I was like, I started doing some math when I was sitting in the gym, and I was like, all right, I don't like being capped or feeling like this is like, all I got to do, I got to spend all this time in the gym and I can't do nothing else type situation. And then the no-shows start getting me. Like the no-shows, you're not going to have me sitting here waiting for you. And you ain't going to show up or let me know you're not showing up. You know what I'm saying? So that type of stuff was interesting. But yeah, when I realized like, I don't want to have no cap. I want like what I explained earlier when I was like, I want to, like how I would rather be in an individual sport than a team sport. It's like I want to win and lose based on my own personal how well I do or not. So that's awesome. Like, are you still working with that company? Or are you just doing real estate full time?
Real estate full time. So I still play tennis like once a week or so. Every once in a while, like one of the girls that I used to coach will come back from college for like winter break and we'll hit a little bit or whatever, but mostly just like playing with friends. And so at this point, it's completely like a leisure activity for me, which is really nice.
Okay. So straight all real estate. So when you started off, you had your first friends that was doing their deals and they brought you in and you was like, okay, this is good money, not bad type situation. So then what was like your goal? So what made you want to start your own team? Like what did you see? Give us some of that process. Is like, all right, I'm trying to go full in. This is like how I'm going to try to scale this business. Yeah.
So Ryan Serhant has always been like an idol of mine. Always like really loved watching him. I think he's great on social media.
Big Frederick guy.
Yeah, Frederick Eklund. He's awesome as well. Like all of those guys have been super impressive to me, and I've watched their careers. So I kind of knew from the get-go, like I want to be along the lines of what these types of guys are doing. I want to build a team. I want to expand to other cities. I want to maybe think about starting my own brokerage. That idea has fallen off a little bit, but at the same time, I did have like a seed of doubt in me. Like I had only been good at one thing my whole life, and that was tennis. So like it was a hard transition to just be like, take that leap of faith and be like, okay, I can be good at other things and I can translate the skills that I have into success in other ways. So that's probably what I'm most proud of, is just that, taking that leap of faith and then actually doing it, because I thought I had it in me, but you never know until you actually prove it to yourself. So, my first full-time year in real estate was 2019. I sold like $2.5 million worth of real estate, which is good. Like it's fine. And it's good for a first year, but it's also like kind of you're barely covering your expenses. And, if you're buying leads and like, doing the marketing and all that stuff. I had a lot of moments in that first year and into the second year where I was like, am I really going to do this? I don't know if I can do this, but I stuck with it. I am stubborn and I usually don't quit at things until I get good at them. So 2020 rolls around, business is picking up. I start to get a little bit more momentum. Starting to get like referrals. More people are realizing, okay, they're associating Emily and real estate. Like people are thinking of me when it comes time to purchase or sell. And then COVID came and actually was really great for the market. Like it actually was it's been a crazy like last 2 years. 2020, I sold 8.5 million. And I could tell as I was going through the year, like I'm going to need to hire someone soon. This is really happening and I'm growing and I'm going to need help. So I sort of like started building my systems and exploring who do I want to hire? What's the next role going to be? I kind of started thinking about that stuff before I really even needed it. And I think it really helped me be prepared and made the transition smooth into actually making that first hire and growing the team. And then, so I hired the first person that I was talking about. His name is Sal. I hired him that July. And then moving into 2021, we did like 23 million. So it's just like, it's been exponential growth. This year, we're going to hit close to 27 million. The goal was 30. So we fell a little short of it, but that's okay. But now, I've just hired another team member and I'm very confident in her. And I feel she has a lot of potential. And I know that with all of us together, I think we can keep growing and push to that like 30 to 40 million range. And my goal is to just have a few very productive people, because I think the bigger you get, the harder it is to keep the quality control and make sure that the service that's provided is exactly what you want it to be when it's your name on the brand. So yeah, that's kind of been my transition in real estate. And now I'm at a point where it's really exciting. And I feel like I have some regularity to, even though it's a commission-based job, I do have some regularity to the business that I can expect to do each year.
Isn't it so crazy how like the best athletes can transition and feel like they can't do, like they don't know what to do next, or they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do that. When really it's like you can do whatever you want to do because of the skill set that you've made to be the best at what you did. You know what I'm saying? Like that skill set like turns into like, if you want to do real estate, if you wanted to do whatever you wanted to do, you could take those same principles and those same like disciplines and characters, and you can go do whatever you want to do. But in our mind, we're like, this is who I am. This is what I do. Now what's next? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got to start over and I got to do this. I got to figure out how to do this and that type of stuff. So
yeah, you hit the nail on the head with it for sure. And I mean, it's hard to, even though you know it deep down, it's hard to really believe it until you do it. So if there's anyone who's listening to this who is, it was that athlete and, is scared for what the next step is and becoming, what the next move is and not having your sport as your main identifier, know that anything is possible, because exactly what you said, the skills you build, it will translate. It will. So I think that's really important.
I'll never forget when my dad told me, he was like, man, you a slave to football. I was like, who are you talking to? You talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause I was like, actually I went to go play in Canada for like, I think my contract was like 55,000, maybe like
crazy,
something crazy. Yeah. And I was like, after thinking about it, I was like, why am I going to play up here? You know what I'm saying? And I'm surely I can make this. Surely if I just figure this out, I can make more than this. You know what I'm saying? Without getting hurt, without getting injured, without doing anything. Surely I can figure this out. And that was kind of really my breaking point of like, all right, I'm not about to keep just, going acting like this is the only thing I can do. Especially if you go to University of Virginia and you excel in one of the top academic schools, one of the highest athletic schools. You didn't go there to show up and then like go hold a corner on the side of the street, or go hold a sign on the side of the street asking for money. You know what I'm saying? Like you go figure it out. You go get it together. But that's awesome. Like your growth is crazy as far as with your company, like the exponential growth. Are you finding more value? Are you like partnering like real estate investors in that type of situation, or is it just like a lot of turnover in the market?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I mean, we do work with investors for sure. Sometimes investors can be a challenge because deals fall apart all the time. And, usually investors are looking for, way below market value deals. So it's harder to navigate those transactions sometimes. So I do work with investors. Usually most of the time it's it's usually someone who I have like a long standing relationship with, who they do multiple transactions, and it's the buy and the sell side and all of that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a lot of turnover of home buyers and sellers. Most of my clientele is like similar to me. I think I've built a big business based on two things, which has been social media and Google. And so I've really focused hard on being a presence on Google, getting a ton of reviews, 5-star reviews, like posting on my Google My Business page and making sure my website is like, optimized and all that kind of stuff. So people find me through Google just by organic searching. And then social media, I've been able to like really connect with a lot of people who I really try to focus mainly on just entertainment on my social media. It can get a little silly sometimes, but I think a lot of real estate agents are boring and they just post like numbers and stats and figures and here's a home buyer tip or that kind of thing. And most people aren't going to Instagram to learn about like, home buyer tips. Like you're probably going to Google that if that's something you're looking for. So I try to keep it more of like just entertaining content that reminds people that I'm in real estate. And, I end up meeting a lot of just like millennial and, young families and people who are similar to the position in life that I'm in. So it's been a really interesting path through all of that stuff.
And it's my last question. First of all, like you and Max, you guys have similar businesses where you're like marketing to the public, and I'd like to understand, Max, how's your experience been? I know you focus on like your Google reviews and stuff like that. How has your experience been with that compared to like what Emily said as far as helping you grow?
I would say mine is somewhat similar, but we're mainly focused on the end user, and it's not as big as a transaction. It's not as big of a life choice. When they're buying a home, they're making, 9 times out of 10, it's the biggest purchase of their life. For me, I focus on a lot of labor stuff. Kind of every business I've done, I've looked at, hey, what are things that I don't want to do and I know I'm willing to pay for them? And let's find people who are willing to do that. So it's a lot easier to find a customer. The hardest part for me is keeping a customer besides the moving. But, when we do the cleaning and the security and a lot of the other stuff, I do the construction, they're not repeat customers. But a lot of people who are going to hire me for labor jobs, all you want to go off of is, hey, I'm already trying to solve a pain point. So the last thing I want to do is find a company that's going to make it harder. So we really do focus on our Google reviews. Word of mouth is huge. We get a lot of business from word of mouth. If people are, hey, like I had a great mover. Hey, this cleaner was great. Hey, he did a great job fixing this for me. Whatever it may be, they're always willing to tell their friends because everyone has a story of when they had a terrible move, a terrible contractor, whatever it may be. Everyone has that story. And so when they find someone, quote unquote, that's great, they're always more than willing to be like, hey, I have a friend who I know is looking. And whenever their friend asks, they always pass their name through. So that's been huge for us, maintaining those Google reviews and stuff like that. It's a much smaller transaction. And much quicker, which is easier for us, but it's definitely word of mouth that's huge.
So for yourself, Emily, are you investing in real estate? Are you like taking advantage of like the inside knowledge that you have as a estate agent and looking to get deals first? You know what I'm saying? That's one of the problems I have with working with.
I was going to say, that's my biggest one too, Chase. It's whatever.
They take all the good ones and then they see.
I'm like, how am I going to get a real estate to find me a good investment deal? Well, aren't y'all just going to get it?
You get the leftovers.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I want to know. How do you ask a real estate agent to find you an investment property?
So here's what I will say. I do invest. At this point, though, I have one investment property. It's a duplex. It does very well, has very nice cash flow. And my next move is going to be to design and either build or renovate my like dream forever home. So the home I'm in now, my idea is to keep it and turn it into an Airbnb. I'm very big on short-term rentals. Airbnb, I think it's the future. Usually you're getting a lot more cash flow with short-term rentals and long-term rentals. I will say for me, like I'm not like aggressively investing where I'm like constantly looking for a deal or that kind of thing. So I do, a lot of times like I am looking just out of curiosity, but I do pass those deals off to other clients and investors because I just may not be in the market at the moment, simply because I believe in like being diversified and not putting everything into real estate. But I do want to put a lot into real estate. But yeah, I mean, it's important. I think if you got to, walk the walk and talk the talk. If you're going to be selling real estate, you got to invest in it yourself. The hard thing is that by the time most properties hit the MLS, they've already been picked over by most experienced investors. So a lot of people understand too, if they're experienced and savvy, that they're going to have to go to the sheriff's sale and they're going to have to go to other places and off market and wholesale and all that kind of stuff to get really, truly the best deals. It depends. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you in that, like, being skeptical of making sure that you're getting like the good deals, not just the leftovers.
Everyone's afraid with interest rates, et cetera. They say it's a bad time to buy a house. Can you tell us, hey, is it a bad time? Is it a good time? And if it's a good time, what would you tell, people that are, a lot of our listeners are new, they're going to be first-time home buyers, maybe some Pittsburgh, but kind of what would you tell them with the market? And then, hey, how do I get started?
The rates have dropped a little bit since they peaked earlier this fall. The nice thing is that the market has slowed down, so it's not as competitive to be a buyer. You're not facing up against 10, 15 other buyers where you're having to offer way over asking and no inspections and all these crazy terms that make it really stressful, especially for a first-time buyer. In exchange, you're paying a little bit more in an interest rate, but if we account for the fact that most houses like in Pittsburgh are selling 95 to 97% of asking at this point, you're getting houses below ask versus having paid $50,000, $75,000 over ask, but your interest rate's a little higher. You're actually still walking away ahead. So I don't think it's a bad time at all. Pittsburgh, I can speak to the Pittsburgh market in saying that it's been extremely stable. We've never really experienced the huge inflated prices that other big cities like DC or New York or Miami or LA or San Francisco, like these big cities that have had these, a huge amount of inflation in their prices, and now they're crashing, right? We really haven't had that in Pittsburgh. Like even in 2008, we really didn't experience like a full-blown crash. So my market specifically, I feel very, very confident in. But as a whole, for most buyers, I think it's a good time because, you're not having to pay these, insane prices and extremely competitive terms where you're buying a home that you haven't even been able to inspect and you don't really know what you're walking into. So it's a give and take, but the rates are hovering around 6%. So it's not too bad. And what I've been telling my buyers is just to plan on refinancing as soon as the rates drop again.
Makes sense. Max, we appreciate that. Good question. That's actually what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask, what's your advice for people to buy? But Emily, thank you. This has been good. I don't think we've missed anything. Have we missed anything that you wanted to touch on?
I think you were pretty thorough. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you guys. Awesome.
Well, can you let people know where they can reach you at? What's the best way to reach you if they want to buy, or if they want, or if you're looking for an employee, mentee, those different type of things.
So, my website is a great place to start. It's just fraserteam.com. I have kind of a weird spelling. It's FRASER team.com. So all of my, team information, contact page, everything lives there. On social, it's Emily Fraser _PGH. That's on TikTok, on Instagram. My team is we've fallen into this branding of ourselves as the Slagents. So on TikTok, we also have a page called the Slagents where we do a lot of parody real estate stuff. So it's been fun, but you can find me at any of those places.
Okay. Awesome. How's TikTok been good for you, for your marketing? TikTok?
Good. Yeah. TikTok has been good. I had 2 clients close this year who met me from TikTok.
There you go. TikTok is becoming a search, and I think it is personally. I think
it's the new Google. Yep, 100%. It is for me. That's where I start.
Yeah, Max. I went to Italy, and I was like, I didn't go on Google and be like, yo, what's some Italian words I need to know? I was like,
yeah.
Like 3 or 4 go-tos, like si, grazie, prego. You know what I'm saying? I was good. With 3 words. Max, you got to get on TikTok, man. I don't think you've made it there yet with your.
I'm not. I was never a big social media guy. I mean, I've done it. We actually just hired somebody to start doing our social media for the movie and the construction, a couple of different other companies. But I haven't gotten to the TikTok yet, man. I've never been big on it, but more and more, I need to get on the wave.
All right. Well, thank you again. Before we close this out, I want to remind everybody. January 2023, we're starting our first live event. First one's in DC. February, we're in New York. March, we'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we look forward for anybody coming to meet us in person, see our podcast in person, and we'll be having some great guests. Thank you, Emily, again for being on here, and we will see you guys next week.